It's time to share secrets and insights from fellow entrepreneurs. If you're looking to grow or start a business and you're a game changer, then keep listening to Avanti Entrepreneur for great advice from your host, Dave Mammano, America's Entrepreneur Coach.
Hey, Avanti Tribe, Dave Mammano here. Just want to thank our sponsor, Paychex. You know, Paychex, they make it simple for businesses of all sizes to pay and manage their team. They make payroll easy with employee pay options, including direct deposit, checks, pay cards, and so much more. Founded over 4 decades ago to relieve the complexity of running a business so that the owners can focus on what matters most. Above all else, and more than any other company, Paychex makes it simple. Visit AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. Go to our partner link and check them out. They're offering you a free month of payroll just for giving them a shot as an Avanti Tribe member. Give them a shot, folks. They really help this podcast to be possible. Really appreciate Paychex. Now, enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Dave Mammano, your host, and we are here today to help achievers and business owners and leaders move forward. That's what Avanti means, folks. Move forward so that they can reach their potential. And as in they, I mean you, folks. I want you to move forward to your next level. I want you to receive all the gifts that you're entitled to by offering tons of value to the world. And the way I do this is by interviewing great business movers and shakers. Today I have on the show a really great entrepreneur, and I'm going to call him a social entrepreneur because he's doing some massive good in the world. His name is James Harrington. James founded the Ugandan Water Project in 2008 with the vision to leverage clean drinking water projects to help communities transform themselves out of poverty. The organization has completed more than 430 major projects, serving now more than 150,000 people from across Uganda. Is it Uganda or Uganda? I guess it just depends where you're from. I'm from Rochester, so I'll say Uganda. But it's probably Uganda. Under James's leadership, his team has achieved innovative improvements to standard practices in water, sanitation, hygiene projects, resulting in a set of solutions recognized as among the best in class in Uganda. As an Opportunity Collaboration Delegate since 2014, James has participated in collaborative community of world-class nonprofit and social enterprise leaders from more than 50 countries collaborating on poverty alleviation from policy to implementation on the ground. Over the past decade, James has accumulated a proven combination of strategic skills and experience through his work in East Africa and is now pivoting to add practical value to teams and individuals hungry to overcome persistent obstacles and maximize opportunities to achieve their mission. He is particularly excited to help nonprofits and faith-based organizations achieve measurable growth and high impact. James, you know, your bio is amazing. I think if I read the whole thing, I may take the whole half hour. So we're gonna dig more into it as we talk. But James, I really want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thanks, Dave. It's great to be here. I appreciate you having me.
And are you appreciating my Rochester accent saying Uganda? I'm imagining it's actually Uganda, right?
Hey, you know, the power in the people, right? Vernacular is where we live. So it's endearing to hear it, you know, however you say it. So it's fine.
I appreciate your thoughtfulness and flexibility. Thank you. Rochester, we have a unique way of pronouncing our A's, right? So
yeah, no, it's true. It's true. But like I said, it's endearing. You know, I love the area. And so whenever I hear that accent, you know, it warms my heart. So I'm glad to be with you, and you can say it however you choose.
I love that. Thank you. So James, you know, the part of the bio that I also left out that I do want to jump into is, I mean, you also have a wife and you're raising 3 beautiful daughters, and you're very active in your church and committed as a family to building community. So, I mean, you have a lot going on. Your office is the world. And so what I really would love to hear for the audience here is how did this all start? I mean, were you sitting in your living room one day and maybe saw a commercial and I got to do something? I mean, what was the light bulb that went off in you to say, you know what, I'm going to go to Africa and I'm going to make a dent in the world, if not the universe? How did this all begin?
Yeah, well, Dave, for me, it started in the normal way. I crashed a barbecue.
Mm.
Isn't that how the world changes? You crash a barbecue and you see what happens. Uh,
Sure.
I had a neighbor who was having a barbecue on Memorial Day weekend. This was 11 years ago, and I walked across the street for an easy meal and to see some friends, and ended up sitting next to a guy that was from Uganda who had come to the U.S. for a leadership conference, and ended up over some burned hot dogs and baked beans, having a conversation about life in his country and in his community for his family, and how that it was different and similar in so many ways to what I faced here in Western New York. And really, one of the things that was compelling, even in that first conversation, was this was a man with a great education, great people skills, very dynamic, like many of us that are in your audience, was very entrepreneurial. And yet, when I asked him, he was trained as a teacher. He started schools. He also was trained as a pastor. And I said, so what is the biggest challenge you face? And he looked at me and said, all of my skills and education are geared towards building up the inner person. And yet I stand in front of classrooms and congregations, and I look out at eyes that are hungry and thirsty, and not for knowledge, but literally hungry and thirsty. And he said, that's my training isn't necessarily, geared towards equipping them. And that's so hard. And right there was something that pricked my heart, and I had just a gnawing curiosity to understand more. It was something that really I said, something should change about this. I need to know more. And so I asked him a lot of questions then, and that really sort of set me off on about a 10-month investigation to just learn about what the water crisis really means, not just for this man and his family, but for his community and for his country. And then I just felt like, hey, this is not putting a man on the moon. This is water. If people are anywhere on the planet, they're figuring this out. So I just said, I think there's something that we here in our community, with our values and our compassion and resources, can probably do something to help. And that's what really got me started, was that one conversation at a barbecue that ultimately led me about a year later to be in Uganda with a handful of friends to see our first rainwater collection system installed on a community building.
Wow. So there are over 150,000 people that are very happy that you went to their barbecue.
I would say so. And thousands more that are on this side of the equation who got to be part of it, because the truth is our impact is in both places. It's the impact we have in helping communities transform out of poverty in Uganda, but it's also the impact of people right here in our communities that are empowered by seeing that they can participate in solving some of the most persistent problems in the world, as long as they have a good partner and a good guide that can really plug their values and their resources in a way that they can really participate and be part of that solution.
Well, amen, James. I mean, I'm telling you, I firmly believe that entrepreneurs are so much better suited to solve the world's problems than government. I think time and time again, when you put a government in charge of solving a problem, it gets worse, right? There's corruption. There's, obviously human nature kicks in, but you get the entrepreneurial spirit in there that, is authentic about truly solving the problem and forced to find a way to make it happen. Oftentimes when government is forced to do it, finally forced to do it, there's a ton of money behind them. And when you have a ton of money, you're not always forced to really find a solution. You're just throwing money at the problems that temporarily may fix it. But when you're an entrepreneur and you are bootstrapping it and you don't have a lot of money behind you, you're not able to really put a patch on it. Sometimes you're forced to really find the solution that's going to change the course once and for all. And that's what I see you're doing, is saying, okay, I'm guessing, James, that you weren't endowed with a massive trust fund, and you had to go in there and be really resourceful and be creative, and there was no big bag of money behind you, and you had to figure out how are we going to solve this problem? How are we going to roll up our sleeves and change the course of this poverty and this really this incredible challenge once and for all. And that's why I think entrepreneurs are so much more suited to solve problems, because darn it, they just roll up their sleeves and they make it happen.
Absolutely. I think it's the innovative grit that, that entrepreneurs have that help us to make that, we're brutally honest about, hey, we have to make, it has to be a real solution and it has to be lean, right? So it has to satisfy our values for quality and outcome. But the truth is, we all know, like, as an entrepreneur, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough money. We're trying to get a great outcome from what we've got. And so, yeah, that scrappiness that gives us that grit and the persistence, that is so helpful for innovating these solutions and really moving towards real sustainability, because we're tackling these huge challenges, whether it's in business or whether it's social entrepreneurship, that we really have to cross the finish line, but the margin for error is very slim. And so I agree. I think it is the crucible that really produces amazing results. And I firmly see that again and again in social entrepreneurship in the work that we're doing as a nonprofit organization.
Yeah, well, going back to the barbecue, and entrepreneurs that are listening to this, whether you started a business or you're thinking about, or you're thinking about it, that experience is not unusual, right? Where all of a sudden you're in a situation and you're not expecting anything, and all of a sudden it hits you, right? Like, oh my God, that is a problem, and I'm really excited about trying to solve it and trying to help it at least. I look back at my first business, and my first business was a magazine called Next Step Magazine, and it was aimed at helping high school students with college and career planning. And the way that happened with me is, I knew that I wanted to start a company. I had been thinking about it, and I ended up talking to my cousin, who just got accepted at RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. Great school. But I said, how did you choose RIT? And he literally shrugged his shoulders, and he's like, I don't know. I got in. My parents said it was a good school. He had some friends that were going here. So, he's spending thousands of dollars a year, and he's really not sure why he's there. And I thought, oh my God, there are so many of my friends and so many students going to college, and they're really not sure why. It's just kind of expected, right? And I thought, wow, I could do a magazine. I could help high school students with college, career, and life planning. I ran the college newspaper at University of Buffalo. I love to write. I love to sell ads. And just by, 6 months later, I had my own magazine. We took it national, but it was all because of a conversation. So you just never know. And, it's just like you kind of, maybe, I don't know if you were putting it out there that you were thinking about starting a business. I know I was. And it was delivered. So it's kind of amazing how things like that happen.
Yeah, it really is. It absolutely is. And I really wasn't. I wasn't looking to start an organization. I was fairly new into a position that I was really enjoying, and yet this was such a compelling opportunity that I began to do just in my spare time, and it was something that my employer gave me some flexibility to pursue. But it really was so compelling and such an incredible opportunity that it was worth the extra time, worth the effort, worth the sacrifice. Because you certainly don't go into starting a nonprofit for the power, prestige, and compensation package, but you certainly stay in it for the paychecks of the heart, and to see lives changed, and to see people really be able to participate in saving lives, and really have a direct role in responding to the world water crisis.
James, you're telling me that you're not driving a company Ferrari at this point?
If by Ferrari you mean a 2010 Honda Odyssey, yeah, man, I'm rocking it.
That's what I meant. That's exactly. Yeah, very similar. Very similar. They both move forward. So yeah, there you go. So James, I think it's also ironic. I'm thinking about your business model and you sitting at that barbecue back in the day. And so we're sitting here at, living and working in Western New York, which we're really between the Great Lakes and the Finger Lakes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're sitting between the world's largest supply of fresh water, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. This area, the northeastern United States, and our area in particular, has the highest concentration of fresh water anywhere in the world. It's an abundant resource here. And so we're blessed. I'm not one of those angry activists that's going to try and make you feel guilty for where we're blessed. We should enjoy that. But it does mean that it creates a gap, because our daily experience for our communities here in this part of the country does not require us to be upfront and in our face with the world water crisis. And yet that is not the case for people other places in our country, and certainly other places in the world. And to try and understand this, I mean, imagine any daily activity. How long can you do it while holding your breath? Not very long. The next to oxygen, water is our second greatest need for life. And there's so many things that it touches. It touches every aspect of our life. And so when you don't have it, it changes everything. And the great thing is, when you provide it, when you secure water for a community, it really also changes everything. And we see that at the schools that, in particular, we love working with schools in Uganda, and we watch just incredible transformation. I think of Ida and Topher School. They were a primary school, and at the end of their sixth grade, or seventh grade, they take a national exam to determine if they can go on to high school. And they were only passing about 22% of their students. But we provided a rainwater system for that school, and the next testing period, they passed 92% of their students. And you think about absences drop, enrollment goes up, more girls are enrolled in school, test scores go up dramatically, all because of something as simple as water.
Yeah, and it's something that we take for granted, right? I mean, I have a big glass of water right by me right now, and I'm probably drinking 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. First thing I do in the morning when I wake up, go downstairs, have a big glass of water, and I take it for granted. I don't think about it. And so I'm not going to complain next time it's raining in Rochester.
That's true.
So, and it really, I mean, to your point, I mean, it really is like, Maslow's levels of survival there. I mean, like you said, I think oxygen and air are really the first thing, right?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. So good for you. Good for what you're doing. And it seems to be, more awareness about the subject. I saw a commercial with Matt Damon a couple months ago with when you buy a Stella Artois beer, they're going to donate some water. And so it's just, of course, inspiring me to buy more Stella, of course, but
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like you needed an excuse for that.
I know. Well, now I feel like I'm doing some good in the world too, right?
There you go. Yeah.
So James, you are an entrepreneur. I know it's a nonprofit, but it's funny when people tell me that they're not an entrepreneur because they're a nonprofit, I laugh because
yeah.
I think, nonprofits are some of the most entrepreneurial organizations in the world because they're, they have to buck and jive in a different way. And they're usually, like you, solving a huge problem that people just are buying a product. I mean, you have to convince them, along with hundreds of thousands of other nonprofits, to give their money to you.
Right.
So I think you have to be really, really, creative and entrepreneurial to run a nonprofit. So congratulations on making this work. So kind of a tongue-in-cheek question. Have you had any challenges along the way?
No, it's been easy, man.
Excellent.
It really has.
Beautiful. And a podcast. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Exactly. No, you're right. It absolutely is difficult. Let me highlight something that's, especially for anybody that's a social entrepreneur or, that is considering a social entrepreneurship career. One of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurship in the social sector is that there's a lot less tolerance for failure. So as entrepreneurs, we tend to embrace risk. That's kind of the nature of the beast, right? We're willing to risk things and try and start something new. But in the nonprofit arena, donors do not tolerate failure. And so it really puts a unique level of pressure. It ratchets it up that you're doing your work with donor dollars. Donor dollars are precious. And if you don't return value in a short time, then people pull out. And so that's one of the things that I find is different, in particular as a challenge, is that we need to innovate. We need to improve and get better at bringing water. But we also, we really have to make our moves with intention, because if we fail, it's surprising how fast donors will turn in another direction. And you can't, it's a waste of time to get upset about that. Instead, you just have to recognize that that's part of the nature of what we do. And it just requires, a more astute commitment to making sure that your moves are the right moves, that you have good mentors, good input, you're always learning, because that already, that there's already a challenging set of variables for entrepreneurs, but it really has a unique, hardship that you'd face as a social entrepreneur.
Yep, absolutely. I am wondering, so a lot of people are listening to this podcast are maybe thinking about starting a business. And so I'm just wondering, go back in time when, you left that barbecue and you were like, I'm going to start a business. I don't know if you were married at the time, maybe your wife thought you were nuts, but what were like, I think a lot of people are just wondering, like, what are the first things I do? Like, I'm going to get my DBA or whatever, but like, what, you remember those first weeks that you just, were taking your dream, this vision in your head and turning it into reality, which, to think about starting a business and to actually do it are two very entirely different things. So you started doing it. What were some of the first things that you did in those first couple of months to, get the momentum going?
Yeah, I would say it's important for all prospective entrepreneurs, but especially for social entrepreneurs. But I focused a lot on first locking in on my why. That I knew enough of. I'd seen enough people in my life that have started something that I knew that I didn't know how hard it was going to be. I just knew it was going to be harder than I thought. And so it was really important for me to really spend some extra time digging into, why is this important? Why do I feel compelled? Why is this not just a should, but a must? It's not just a problem that should change, but for me, I'm saying that it must change. And locking in on the why was really critical, because that helped me to, as I faced those challenges in the first few years, just the unexpected blind sides of how hard it is to start anything, it really helped me carry through, and it anchored me. So that was one thing. And then there's the practical steps of incorporating and all that. But I found that alongside of that, I started reading biographies for people that were doing similar kinds of work, because their story, it was faith that could be borrowed from their experience. And it wasn't about not having access to the practical steps. It was making sure that I stayed inspired, because it's the why and the success stories of others that help to carry you through the roadblocks and the detours that you face.
So that was your first thing, just like in your heart, what is the why? What's going to inspire you to make it happen? And then I'm thinking, like, you got that down, which I agree with you. Number one, otherwise you're not going to be able to sustain the dream and all the frustrations and hard work that goes along with starting and growing a business. But then you had to say, like, okay, I guess I'm going to go to Africa. I'm just wondering logistically, how did that all happen?
Yeah. And so, the first practical steps of, okay, now what do we do? It really came down to many things you can't understand until you actually show up. And so it was one of those things that, given the nature of what we were doing, we had to get into the arena and recognize that the desk investigation, just looking things up and learning, were only going to take me so far, that I could never be totally prepared, that I had to actually, buy a plane ticket and go over to Uganda. And that's true whether it's a geographic going into the environment, or whether it's just getting involved in some part of the business that you're thinking of. I realized there was nothing that was going to teach me like being on the ground in front of the people that need help, understanding the challenges of what it takes to purchase materials and arrange for transport, and to hire the guys to actually do the work. So it really started with, hey, getting some support around the vision, asking some people to get on board with some donations, and then very quickly, as soon as we really, really could, getting on a plane and going over there, because taking those first steps to install those first systems taught us so many things. There's nothing like taking a few steps to really reveal what you don't know, or reveal the subtle restraints that can't be seen from a distance. So yeah, it really was just as simple as you got to ultimately buy a ticket, get on a plane, and try.
It sounds like I'm definitely an optimistic, manic, excitable entrepreneur, but even the thought of that, like, it overwhelms me. Like, I've never been to Africa, and I don't know if you had before. Like, I just wouldn't know, like, okay, I'm gonna like go to Africa. And how did you know, like, where to go and who to talk to and how to like get things started over there?
Sure. So I did continue to work with the same guy that I'd met at the barbecue. So I had a relationship on the ground. And surprisingly, and I think you'd probably relate to this, Dave, and many in the audience would as well. As soon as you start inclining your mind and your heart towards something, your antenna goes up, and suddenly you start to notice. It's sort of like, my wife bought a green Kia Soul, and all of a sudden we see them everywhere, right? And just like that, when you start to head towards starting a business, suddenly you're tuned in to anything related to that. And so I started realizing I do know other people that are doing some work in Africa. I did know some people that had done some things with water projects. And so connecting with them and asking them questions, I just was blind to it because I wasn't tuned in and I wasn't trying to move in that direction. So while, yes, there's so many unknowns, I did know a guy from Uganda that was wanting to be part of this. And as soon as I got on the right channel, I did start to realize that if you break the endeavor down into little pieces, you might find, and I found this, that there were people in my life or connected to people in my life that had experience in different aspects, and I could tap them and reach out to them to kind of get my bearings so that I wasn't going in completely blind. Because, you're right, Africa plays rough and Africa plays for keeps. So I think with any venture, there's certain risk that that there's a point beyond adventurous that is foolish. And so how do you stay safe while still, committing to moving forward? And I found that, again, reaching out to those relationships and learning from other people's experience, I could walk in with some, and assuming that I'm going to make mistakes and having grace for ourselves to make those mistakes. But you commit to failing forward.
What were you doing for a living before the barbecue?
Yeah, and that sort of helps. I was a road and tour manager for a band, and we did a lot of work. It was a faith-based organization that did a lot of work with young people, with high school and college students, and I was running all of the logistics for their events. And so, again, that helped with what I was trying to do in Uganda, because I'm used to reaching out to people and putting together events and timelines and production, for lighting and sound and stage. And so I'm used to thinking through systems and thinking through the implementation of something we're going to do in one location once. And so those were some skills I already had. I also previous to that, had been a purchasing agent. And so I understood some of the ins and outs of buying materials and thinking those things through. So there's definitely some things in my past that I looked and realized, wow, I'm actually well prepared for some of the aspects of what I'm trying to do now.
So you go home after the barbecue. I would love to be a fly in the wall when you told your wife that you're going to start a business and you're going to be spending a lot of time in Africa. How did that go?
Yeah, well, I married well. My wife and I both share a love for other cultures and travel and compassion, and combining those things. She, at the time, had traveled far more than I had in her teens and 20s, and oftentimes to do exactly the kind of work, serving and helping the poor and things like that. And so she really, she was very open to the idea. Obviously, it requires a tremendous sacrifice for our families when we start something. And that's something any of us who are starting a business or have started a business understand that. For mine, the particular challenge is my family has to believe in what we're doing, because I'm gone. I leave anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And that's a significant sacrifice for my family. And I'm choosing a career that generally doesn't pay tremendously well. And so those are things that each of my family members, my wife and my 3 daughters, have had to buy in their own way to believe in our mission. But at the very beginning, my wife was supportive, and if she hadn't been, I certainly could have never done it. And she actually took on the challenge to grow her own business so that I could afford to be doing what I wanted to start doing.
Well, you married well, and she married well too, James. Let's give herself some credit.
Yeah, I try to live up to that.
Well, James, you know what? So many congratulations. The world is such a better place because you were born. I love what you're doing. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, learn more, help out, get involved, or just talk to you, you have as they say, a great voice for podcasting and radio. My wife says I have a great face for podcasting, so I always appreciate that.
Yeah.
But if they do want to get in touch with you, James, what is the best way?
Yeah, you can visit us online at ugandanwaterproject.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. They're very easy to find if you just look for Ugandan Water Project. And if you want to email me directly, we're a small organization that believes in relationships, and especially this audience who are an audience of entrepreneurs. Feel free to email me directly, james@ugandanwaterproject.com. We'd love to tell you more. We'd love to connect with you and hear what you're doing. And we really appreciate this audience and what the community that you've been building, Dave.
Well, James, thanks again so much. You're so massively inspiring. You're not only have a business, you're saving lives. And so glad I met you, and I wish you massive continued success. And I know that you're going to continue to grow what you're doing. I think we said you're at 430 projects or more than that now, and serving 150 people across Uganda. I'll say it the right way, Uganda. And so I look forward to continue to keeping in touch with you and keeping close tabs on your success and helping any way that I can.
Yeah. And my last thing that I would say is if anybody in the audience is looking for their business to partner and express the values of their business through corporate social responsibility, if you're looking for a good partner for that, we'd love to talk, because we believe in pairing with great companies and great business people that say, hey, we want to take our values and express it, not just through our products and services, but also through the way we give back. And it's a great opportunity to be able to do something as universal as providing clean water through wells, water filters, rainwater systems for communities in Uganda. So we'd love to hear from your audience if there's people that are looking for that opportunity to be in a relationship with an organization like ours.
James Harrington, Ugandan Water Project, thank you so much. And I also want to thank our Avanti listeners for tuning in. Appreciate your time as well. We do have to go, so thanks again for everybody for listening. Make sure to check us out on the web, where this interview will be archived, show notes, links, the whole works to things that James was talking about, and our past other episodes. We're over 100 now, folks. I've got some great interviews at AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. Thank you. Have a great day, and stay awesome.
Thank you for listening. Head over to AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com for show notes and more helpful advice from entrepreneurs like you. Continue to find your entrepreneurial rhythm at the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast.